The confirmation of charges hearing in the case, the prosecutor versus Rodrigo Roa Duterte, took place from 23rd to 27th February 2026 before ICC Pretrial Chamber 1, composed of Presiding Judge, Judge Julia Antonella Motok, Judge Reine Adeline Sophie Alapini Gansu, and Judge Maria del Socorro Flores Liera. During the 4-day hearing, the prosecution, the defense, and the legal representatives of victims presented their opening statements. They made oral submissions before the judges on the merit of the case, and finally, they made their closing statements. The confirmation of charges hearings were held in the absence of the suspect, Mr. Rodrigo Roa Duterte, who was represented by his lead defense counsel, Mr. Nicholas Kaufman. The presiding judge, Judge Julia Motok, reminded the public, as well as the parties and participants, about the purpose of a confirmation of charges hearing.
La présence audience est relative à la confirmation des charges.
This hearing concerns the confirmation of charges by the prosecution against Mr. Duterte. At this stage of pre-trial proceedings, the OTP alleges that Mr. Duterte is responsible for the crimes that the course officer shall read out shortly. The Chamber shall not take any decision with regard to the guilt or innocence of Mr. Duterte during this hearing. Indeed, the role of the Chamber is to determine whether there is sufficient evidence to establish substantial grounds to believe that Mr. Duterte committed the crimes with which he is charged. If all or part of the charges are confirmed, the Chamber will refer the case to trial, where the trial chamber will decide upon the innocence or guilt of Mr. Duterte. The general principles to be applied at the hearing are as follows. The suspect, in accordance with Article 66 of the Rome Statute, the suspect is considered to be innocent until his guilt has been proven.
Mr. Duterte is suspected of murder qualified as a crime against humanity allegedly committed in the Philippines between 1st November 2011 and 16th March 2019. During this time, Mr. Duterte was, at varying times, the president of the Philippines, the mayor of Davao City, and allegedly the head of the Davao Death Squad. During the confirmation of charges hearing, charges against Rodrigo Duterte were read out in the courtroom before the parties and participants took the floor to present their opening statements. For the prosecution, Deputy Prosecutor Niang presented the prosecution opening statements.
Today marks an important day for international justice, for the people of the Philippines, for the victims, and for this court. The commencement of the confirmation hearing against Mr. Rodrigo Roa Duterte is a reminder of the court's unwavering commitment to its mission to investigate and prosecute individuals for the most serious crimes of concern to the international community and to bring justice to the thousands of victims of the mass crimes and atrocities perpetrated in the Philippines. It is also a reminder that those in power are not above the law.
During the submissions on the merit of the case, the prosecution team, led by senior trial lawyer Mr. Julian Nichols, further detailed the alleged crimes that were committed by Mr. Duterte during the charged period. Mr. Nichols presented prosecution evidence indicating Mr. Duterte's alleged responsibility in the alleged crimes during the relevant time period. Further, the prosecution alleges that Mr. Duterte played a pivotal role and he was at the heart of a common plan which was to neutralize alleged criminals in the Philippines. The prosecution presented videos, photographs, excerpts of witness statements, reports and documentation, among other evidence.
We're here today because the evidence shows, despite what we heard for the last 30 minutes before the break, that Mr. Duterte murdered thousands of his own people, Filipino men, women, and children. He was at the center of a common plan, which included the murder of alleged criminals throughout the Philippines. The plan was first implemented in Mr. Duterte's hometown of Davao. While mayor, he promised to clean up the city by killing alleged criminals. He kept that promise, and he murdered hundreds through so-called liquidation squads, death squads. These liquidation squads became notoriously known colloquially as the Davao Death Squad, or DDS.
The prosecution senior trial lawyer, Mr. Julian Nichols, further detailed the alleged crimes that Mr. Duterte committed.
As president, he murdered thousands using many of the same co-perpetrators and methods from his time as mayor of Davao. So he moved the method and some of the co-perpetrators to Manila in order to expand it, the crimes. The victims in this case ranged from powerful individuals to predominantly the poorest citizens of the Philippines. Now, why were the poor selected and victimized? Well, it was often because they were the most vulnerable, and they didn't have the families and the power to make police reports, and they were the most afraid. Mr. Duterte boasted about the killings that resulted in thousands of deaths at his order, and not once at any time has he shown any remorse. He promised, also, you will hear, to take responsibility, personal responsibility, for the killings, if need be. Well, that time has come. We are confident that if your honors confirm the charges in this case, that we will prevail and Mr. Duterte will be convicted at trial.
Mr. Joel Butuyang, the legal representatives of victims in this case, presented the opening statements on behalf of the victims.
Madam President, Your Honors, by way of an opening statement, we convey the views and concerns of the 497 victims authorized to participate in these proceedings. At the outset, Your Honors, we communicate the very deep disappointment of the victims at the decision allowing Rodrigo Duterte not to be present in this stage of confirmation of charges. The sight of Mr. Duterte being read and being confronted with the grave and horrible charges against him would have constituted a vital component of justice for the victims. This case symbolically represents the last boat that the victims can board to go on a journey in search of justice for their loved ones who were brutally killed upon the orders of Mr. Duterte. Your Honors, Mr. Duterte has been in detention here in The Hague for almost a year now, but there has been no peace and rest for the victims. From the time their loved ones were killed and continuously up to this time, they lived in constant fear for their lives. The arrest and detention of Mr. Duterte has not stopped impunity in the Philippines. The virus of impunity that he spread all over the country has become a cancer that has metastasized, infecting millions of Filipinos.
Further, Ms. Paulina Masida, legal representative of victims in this case, made submissions on the merit of the case. Ms. Masida noted that thousands of victims suffered harm in the Philippines due to the alleged actions of Mr. Duterte.
We speak today on behalf of thousands of victims and surviving families who have suffered immeasurable harm under the so-called anti-drug campaign conducted during the administration of the suspect, former President Rodrigo Roa Duterte. We speak for families who cannot be here, mothers who buried their sons, children who lost their parents, the spouses who now raise families alone, and communities that have lived for years under fear and silence and that continue to bear the consequences of violence that swept through their neighborhoods like a storm. These victims appear today before you not as mere statistics or distant figures or images in report as pictured yesterday by the defense, but as human beings whose rights under the Rome Statute have been violated in the most profound ways.
Lead Defense Counsel Mr. Nicholas Kaufman, during his opening statements, made submissions about his client, Mr. Rodrigo Roa Duterte, and the alleged crimes that he is charged with.
In any event, we're not gathered here today to judge a man on the basis of his coarse attitude or his vulgar language. This court has convened a confirmation hearing to verify whether substantial grounds exist to believe that Rodrigo Duterte, the people's president, together with various so-called co-perpetrators, over the years of his governance, devised a criminal policy of wholesale and wanton murder. And since we are in a court of law, it is worth stressing, although I should not have to, cases are decided on the basis of evidence, not supposition, not rumor, not spicy gossip, and certainly not on the basis of political rhetoric and bluster.
Following the opening statements, the presentation on the merit of the case, the parties and participants also presented their closing statements, starting with the prosecution. Mr. Julian Nichols, prosecution senior trial lawyer, requested the chamber to confirm the charges against the suspect, Mr. Duterte.
The facts can't be denied by these sprinklings. He ran a death squad in Davao that he created. He ran it for over 20 years before he became president. His promise was to kill thousands, and he did. So it doesn't matter how many times he tried to throw in a caveat. And again, as I said, this is not uncommon in crimes committed by powerful figures. They try to build in a defense. It's a quote from a speech on August 16, 2017. What did he say? Quote, "I know I will have my own downfall. I cannot be president forever. I know that they will demand to answer for all this dead." End quote. And he was right when he spoke those words. He must answer for the dead. The victims demand it, justice demands it, and for purposes of confirmation, the evidence demands it. We have proven it to the level for this to be bound over for trial. We ask you to do that, Your Honors.
Mr. Gilbert Andres, legal representatives of victims, made closing statements on behalf of victims in this case, requesting the chamber to confirm the charges against the suspect, Mr. Duterte.
The victims submit that the prosecution presented sufficient evidence to establish substantial grounds to believe that Mr. Rodrigo Roa Duterte committed each of the crimes charged. Consequently, all charges should be confirmed, and Mr. Rodrigo Roa Duterte committed to trial. Lastly, Your Honor, the victims want these charges to be confirmed because they want to be reintegrated to their communities, because they are still in the shadows of fake news, of fear and of threats from Mr. Duterte's supporters. Hence, it's important, Your Honor, that all of these charges be confirmed against Mr. Duterte, so that the victims of these crimes will be taken out of the shadow of darkness into the light of truth and justice.
Finally, lead defense counsel, Mr. Nicholas Kaufman, made his closing statements, whereby he requested the chamber not to confirm the charges against his client, Mr. Duterte.
Your Honours, it is so easy to choose as a target for prosecution a politician because of the way he presents his policies. If Rodrigo Duterte is to be faulted for anything, it is for his inappropriate choice of language. But he murdered no one. Out of that huge database of evidence on which the prosecution relies, I repeat that there is absolutely nothing to directly link Rodrigo Duterte to the 78 deaths alleged. That is why they rely on a few selective and vociferous individuals in the Duterte administration, calling them co-perpetrators, just so it can artificially superimpose their fantasy common plan theory linking Rodrigo Duterte to the victims. Your Honours, I beg you to be guided by evidence, which must reach a minimal level of integrity. Be persuaded by your own innate sense of justice and by your own collective years of experience. But most importantly, be guided by coherent evidence and by common sense. I ask you, I beg you not to confirm any of the charges. I ask you to let Rodrigo Duterte return to the Philippines, not to govern, but simply to let him live out the rest of his days in peace, in his humble dwelling in Davao.
Following the conclusion of the submissions from the parties and participants, the presiding judge thanked everyone before adjourning the hearings. The purpose of a confirmation of charges hearing is to determine whether there is sufficient evidence to establish substantial ground to believe that the person committed each of the crimes charged. If one or more of the charges are confirmed, the case will be transferred to a trial chamber, which will conduct the subsequent phase of the proceedings, the trial.